Good evening, and welcome to Third Church, New York City. We are so glad you're here with us. Each one of you adds to the richness of this healing service. Let's start by singing hymn number 45. I'll read the first verse. Dear God, how glorious is thy name through all the earth and sea and sky, the wondrous heavens, thy handiwork, the moon and stars hast thou ordained. Hymn number 45. I'll read from the Bible and correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. The topic for tonight is animals, spiritual representations. Psalms. O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom thou hast made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. These wait all upon thee, that thou mayest give them their meat in due season. That thou givest them, they gather. Thou openest thine hand, they are filled with good. Job. Ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. Or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, and the fishes of the sea shall declare unto thee. Who knoweth not in all these that the hand of the Lord hath wrought these? In whose hand is the soul of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind. Genesis. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Psalms. Thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens. Thy righteousness is like the great mountains. Thy judgments are a great deep, O Lord. Thou preservest man and beast. Genesis. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark, because of the waters of the flood. Of clean beasts, and of beasts that are not clean, of fowls, and of everything that creepeth upon the earth, there went in 2 and 2 unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. Jonah. They took up Jonah and cast him forth into the sea. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. Daniel. The king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Then the king arose very early in the morning, and went in haste unto the den of lions. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me, forasmuch as before him innocency was found in me. Matthew. And when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, Doth not your master pay tribute? And he said, Yes. Jesus saith unto him, Go thou to the sea, and cast an hook, and take up the fish that first cometh up. And when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take, and give unto them for me and thee. Job. So the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, and 6,000 camels, and 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 she-asses. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters. First Kings. So King Solomon was king over all Israel. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country, and all the wisdom of Egypt. And he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And he spake of trees from the cedar that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. He spake also of beasts, and of fowl, and of creeping things, and of fishes. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon. Numbers. And Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? Am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine, unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, Nay. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. And the ass saw me, and turned from me these 3 times. And Balaam said unto the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knew not that thou stoodest in the way against me. Therefore, if it displease thee, I will get me back again. Matthew. Then Jesus went thence, and behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered and said unto her, It is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Psalms. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. What is man that thou art mindful of him? For thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. Thou hast put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, yea, and the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passeth through the paths of the seas. Exodus. 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. 6 days shalt thou do thy work, and on the 7th thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thy ass may rest. Psalms. Hear, O my people, and I will speak. I am God, even thy God. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. Psalms. He sendeth the springs unto the valleys which run among the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild asses quench their thirst. By them shall the fowls of the heaven have their habitation, which sing among the branches. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth, and wine that maketh glad the heart of man, and oil to make his face shine, and bread which strengtheneth man's heart. The trees of the Lord are full of sap, where the birds make their nests. As for the stork, the fir trees are her home. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats, and the rocks for the conies. Ezekiel, thus saith the Lord God, I will take of the highest branch of the high cedar. In the mountain of the height of Israel I will plant it, and it shall bring forth boughs, and bear fruit, and be a goodly cedar, and under it shall dwell all fowl of every wing. In the shadow of the branches thereof shall they dwell. Luke, what man of you having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, doth not leave the 99 in the wilderness, and go after that which is lost until he find it? John, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. The hireling fleeth because he is an hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. Isaiah, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. And from the Science and Health. All nature teaches God's love to man, but man cannot love God supremely and set his whole affections on spiritual things while loving the material or trusting it more than the spiritual. Nature voices natural, spiritual law and divine love, but human belief misinterprets nature. Arctic regions, sunny tropics, giant hills, winged winds, mighty billows, verdant vales, festive flowers, and glorious heavens all point to mind, the spiritual intelligence they reflect. The floral apostles are hieroglyphs of deity. In the order of science, in which the principle is above what it reflects, all is one grand concord. We cannot fathom the nature and quality of God's creation by diving into the shallows of mortal belief. We must reverse our feeble flutterings, our efforts to find life and truth in matter, and rise above the testimony of the material senses, above the mortal to the immortal idea of God. These clearer, higher views inspire the godlike man to reach the absolute center and circumference of his being. Natural history presents vegetables and animals as preserving their original species, like producing like. In reproduction, the order of genus and species is preserved throughout the entire round of nature. This points to the spiritual truth and science of being. The realm of the real is spirit. Genesis 1:21. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Spirit is symbolized by strength, presence, and power, and also by holy thoughts winged with love. These angels of his presence, which have the holiest charge, abound in the spiritual atmosphere of mind, and consequently reproduce their own characteristics. Their individual forms we know not, but we do know that their natures are allied to God's nature, and spiritual blessings thus typified are the externalized yet subjective states of faith and spiritual understanding. Spirit blesses the multiplication of its own pure and perfect ideas. From the infinite elements of the one mind emanate all form, color, quality, and quantity, and these are mental, both primarily and secondarily. Their spiritual nature is discerned only through the spiritual senses. Genesis 1:24, and God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind." And it was so. Spirit diversifies, classifies, and individualizes all thoughts, which are as eternal as the mind conceiving them. But the intelligence, existence, and continuity of all individuality remain in God, who is the divinely creative principle thereof. Animals and mortals metaphorically represent the gradation of mortal thought, rising in the scale of intelligence, taking form in masculine, feminine, or neuter gender. The fowls which fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven correspond to aspirations, soaring beyond and above corporeality, to the understanding of the incorporeal and divine principle, love. And God said, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life. I have given every green herb for meat." God gives the lesser idea of himself for a link to the greater, and in return, the higher always protects the lower. The rich in spirit help the poor in one grand brotherhood, all having the same principle or Father. And blessed is that man who seeth his brother's need and supplieth it, seeking his own in another's good. Love giveth to the least spiritual idea might, immortality, and goodness, which shine through all as the blossom shines through the bud. All the varied expressions of God reflect health, holiness, immortality, infinite life, truth, and love. Mind's infinite ideas run and disport themselves. In humility, they climb the heights of holiness. In the figurative transmission from the divine thought to the human, diligence, promptness, and perseverance are likened to the cattle upon 1,000 hills. They carry the baggage of stern resolve and keep pace with highest purpose. Tenderness accompanies all the might imparted by Spirit. The individuality created by God is not carnivorous, as witness the millennium state pictured by Isaiah. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. All of God's creatures, moving in the harmony of science, are harmless, useful, indestructible. In one sense, God is identical with nature, but this nature is spiritual and is not expressed in matter. God is natural good and is represented only by the idea of goodness, while evil should be regarded as unnatural because it is opposed to the nature of spirit, God. The divine mind, which forms the bud and blossom, will care for the human body even as it clothes the lily. But let no mortal interfere with God's government by thrusting in the laws of erring human concepts. God alone makes and clothes the lilies of the field, and this he does by means of mind, not matter. The mine knows not of the emeralds within its rocks. The sea is ignorant of the gems within its caverns, of the corals, of its sharp reefs, of the tall ships that float on its bosom, or of the bodies which lie buried in its sands. Yet these are all there. The true concept is never lost. Genesis 1:26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Let them have dominion." Man is the family name for all ideas, the sons and daughters of God. All that God imparts moves in accord with him, reflecting goodness and power. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." The substance, life, intelligence, truth, and love, which constitute deity, are reflected by his creation. And when we subordinate the false testimony of the corporeal senses to the facts of science, we shall see this true likeness and reflection everywhere. God fashions all things after his own likeness. Love, redolent with unselfishness, bathes all in beauty and light. The grass between our feet silently exclaims, "The meek shall inherit the earth." The modest arbutus sends her sweet breath to heaven. The great rock gives shadow and shelter. Divine love blesses its own ideas and causes them to multiply, to manifest his power. Let's pray for the congregation, first silently, then repeat together the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Let's sing hymn number 297. Science, the angel with the flaming sword, God's gift, the glory of the risen Lord, light of the world, in whose light we shall see Father and perfect Son, blessed unity. Hymn number 297. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 1 p.m. and Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. All services will be held online and in person until further notice. We are following social distancing recommendations and encourage wearing a mask. For more information, please visit our website, thirdchurchnyc.com. First Church of Christ Scientist in Jupiter, Tequesta, Florida, invites you to a live online lecture titled How to Make Change for the Better, given by Janet Haggerty, CSB. This lecture is Sunday, June 28th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Zoom lecture link is being shown on your screen now. We're now holding Sunday school classes online for kids and teens. These free one-hour classes will be held each Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Students can request either a Spanish-speaking or English-speaking teacher. At Sunday school, students will learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They will also learn about the Bible characters and lessons, as well as the healing power of truth. If you know of children and teens who may be interested, please send us an email, thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. Christian Science is practical and it heals. Our meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that prove God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you would like to share and are listening by telephone, press *9 and wait until your line is unmuted. If you're watching by Zoom, you can choose the raise your hand icon or unmute yourself to speak.
Thank you for your readings on nature and naturalness and harmony. Healing in Christian Science is natural, and as we read in this week's lesson, it is the operation of divine principle, before which sin and disease lose their reality. And this is not supernatural, but it's divinely natural. As Christian scientists, there's nothing wrong with loving nature, the beauties of nature, etc. But we don't make the physical world a god. We have the mindset of translating what we see into spiritual ideas and know that no matter how beautiful nature is, it is, as Mrs. Eddy says, I think in miscellaneous writings, the promise of the things to come. If man is a compound idea, man includes the idea of animals and of nature, of trees and flowers and that kind of thing. And therefore, in that inclusion in man's consciousness, in the consciousness of divine sonship, all is in harmony. And harmony is something that means a great deal to me, and I have often spent too much time trying to get at it humanly, rather than yielding to the fact that being is harmonious, because God in all his ideas and his expressions and his manifestations, from the greatest, meaning man, to the least, and I don't know what that would be, an amoeba or something like that, are all functioning and accomplishing their purpose the purpose given them throughout all eternity by divine principle. And I'm learning that divine principle is the only guarantee of harmony, and that harmony begins in spiritual consciousness. So thank you for those readings and the thinking it prompted in me.
Thank you. I'd like to share a healing I had this week. There were 2 spots on my body that were giving me a lot of pain, and an inflammation. One was one hip, and the other was my wrist. And I prayed daily about this, but it wasn't until they started to worsen and they weren't getting better by the prayer that I sat down and gave myself a Christian Science treatment that we learn in primary class of Christian Science. We can also learn by reading the Science and Health how to treat ourselves. And in this treatment, I first set out to dissolve any fear that this might be chronic, or fear that this might be due to age and I'd have to put up with it. And I often fear is the basis of pain. So I worked diligently in this treatment to handle fear, age, chronic disability. And what I worked with were the synonyms of God. Principle, for example. If I am the image and likeness of God, as the Bible says, and if God is principle and love, then everything about me is orderly and works just how it should, which is normal, also perfect. And I shared this with the world so that anyone with these types of symptoms or beliefs appearing on their body would benefit from this prayer. I also worked with the idea that God has been around a long, long time. God has been forever, eternity, but God's not old. So as his reflections, we aren't old either. We don't suffer from these beliefs that tend to build up. We heal them. That was the synonym life. I worked with soul. Soul is the idea of God as manifested as graceful movements, as precise movements. And when I got to the end of the treatment, I applied it to myself, to all mankind, and I rested the case with divine mind. I left it there. I didn't keep going back. And when I got up from the prayer, the pain was gone. I was able to go upstairs quickly with joy, without any sense of feeling in my back except the feeling of how nice it was to go upstairs without pain. I was able to get up, sit down, lie down perfectly comfortably. My wrist was fine too. I could pick up my purse with both hands now. I didn't have to use the one that wasn't affected. I could write again. And I'm just so grateful. And I was looking at the East River the other day, and I noticed that the currents in the river are really strong. And often, they go in 2 directions at the same time. So one half of the river will be going one way and the other way. And these sometimes meet and cause an eddy. And I thought how difficult it would be to swim across that. Then I thought, what a perfect metaphor for aggressive mental suggestion, for collective thought that can carry us downstream if we want, even if we don't want. And I thought, but no, we have this understanding given in the Science and Health and the Bible that we aren't affected by world thought. We aren't affected by aggressive mental suggestion. These are just beliefs, and we can see them for what they are and see ourselves as whole, and that's where the healing comes. So people often say I was grateful for that, but I'm even more grateful for, I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful that my whole thought process changed. I was full of gratitude rather than fear. I was full of calm rather than nervousness. I was full of joy rather than pain. But I guess what I'm most grateful for is that we have the science in health, and I know how to use it. And I'm just so grateful that Mary Baker Eddy based this study on the Bible, on God's love for us, and her insight into replicating healing regularly and consistently and permanently.
Thank you for your reading from Death tonight. There's two things that I'm very grateful for. One was the idea that the healing comes when the idea of a perfect one becomes more present in our thought than the idea of mortal man, of the discord. And therefore, the work not to focus our thought on how can we heal this problem, but to see the nothingness of the problem and the allness of God at the very same time. And your testimony this evening was a very good example of that. The other thing that I liked in the lesson this week was the idea. There's a passage that where Mrs. Eddy writes that the word and the prayer, I don't know if she said it like that, but these are just auxiliaries to get our thought in rapport with the divine mind. It's a way of lifting our thought and lifting our consciousness, and at the goal, the golden state, the best state, is when our thought is in rapport with God, and that's the objective. There's many things that I'm grateful for. It's always worth gratitude when there's an election. We had a primary yesterday in New York State and in other states, and I'm grateful for the people that run to make our democracy work. I'm grateful for the people that help with the elections, that bring about the results. There's much in the news about how we could do a better job at that, but I appreciate the effort of all those involved. I'm grateful for God's presence in my activity at work. I've had a very harmonious experience of being able to finish one task and then being able to go on and finish another. And things were knitting together very nicely in time. And that's really a very good state. And it's pleasant to work with people and to help people. And my experience during these past months have been able to work very productively, just under the circumstances of my job. But I'm grateful for that. So thank you again for the meeting and for the readings.
Thank you. And thank you all for your testimonies, remarks, and prayerful presence during this service. Let's conclude by singing hymn number 318. Suffer the children to come unto me. This was the Master's tender plea. Gentle and loving, they are mine. Ah, will not ye who see this sign come unto me? Hymn number 318.